factor model solution that was published in other research and hypothesized, even though I didn't do a confirmatory factor analysis to really test it in a hypothesis-driven method. Overall, I would say my factor solutions produced 3 factors along the lines of the items, but there is some perturbance some messiness in the factor solution, because difficulty describing feelings, these last 2 items are loading both on factor 1 and 2. And that's not simple. That's not ideal simple structure. It's possible that other rotations using Promax or a different default value in direct Oberlin, if I change that to 1, 2, 3 or something like that, I might get a better and simpler factor solution. But my hunch is it won't, because I know these data in a fair amount of detail, and I know that these data aren't perfectly in accordance with simple structure. And simple structure is when you've got nice big factor loadings that should be there, and then the remaining factor loadings that are small are actually 0. Ideally, these would just be all 0. But it's the real world's not like that. But we can test the hypothesis that these are 0 in a confirmatory factor analysis approach, because you don't expect it to be exactly 0. There will be fluctuations due to random sampling. So that's the pattern matrix. The structure matrix can be interesting at times. I talk more about it in the PCA videos. I won't talk about it here, but basically it's just the correlations between the variables and the factors, whereas the pattern matrix is more like beta weights in multiple regression, whereas these are more like correlations between the variables and the factors. Sometimes it can be informative to look at that. Here we've got the correlations between the variables. So here we can see that factor 1 and factor 2 are correlated at 0.3. So difficulty identifying feelings is correlated with externalizing oriented thinking. And in factor 1 and 3 are negatively correlated, and this is where factor analysis can kind of throw you for a loop. You'd be going, oh, so it's negatively correlated? Difficulty identifying feelings is negatively correlated with difficulty describing feelings? I wouldn't have guessed that. And it's not true. It's because the factor loadings on the third factor are negative, as I pointed out earlier. And so a negative correlation with a negative factor loading factor is actually a positive correlation. So you have to be careful here and interpret the correlations based on the values associated with the factor loadings. This is a great example, I think, of how people can kind of get fooled. And again, why it's arbitrary to interpret the negative and positive values associated with a factor solution as relatively arbitrary, as long as you're consistent in how you change negative to positive and the positive ones to negative. But in this case, I know that the difficulty describing feelings and identifying feelings is positively correlated, because the great weight in the negative factor loadings here were all negative. So I'm going to end the factor analysis here. It was probably a fairly in-depth look at factor analysis in SPSS. Give my opinions on some things. I hope you consider doing factor analysis on your own data. And I hope you've learned something and that will help you do factor analysis on your own data. Thanks for listening.